So, Geronda, you said that there were times where you couldn't get out of the house.
Yes.
And obviously, you were here, you left. So the question is how did you get out?
Well, he was preparing for a party at the time, and I told him that my uncle lived a few doors down, and I wanted to go to my uncle's house to grab some shoes. And he was like, okay, well, when you get there, you get the shoes, and you come right back.
Common sense. Don't forget the blogs. Forget how you feel about me. Hate me if you want to, love me if you want, but just use your common sense. How stupid would it be for me to, with my crazy past and what I've been through, right now I just think I need to be a monster and hold girls against their will, chain them up in my basement, and don't let them eat and don't let them out unless they need some shoes down the street from their uncle. Stop it.
And at that moment, when I knew I got out the house, I was like, I'm not going back. I refused. I wasn't going back.
So you had to lie to get out of the house.
I lied, and I got out.
Everything behind.
I left everything behind. Only thing I had in my hand was the cell phone. That's because, of course, you need to communicate with him to get back in.
Wow. Got it.
So I left everything, and I just never looked back.
But back to Geronda. Where did she
came to
come
me
in?
because she read that first story. When she would cut school in Streamwood and attend the trial every day, and met Kelly and began a sexual relationship shortly after he was acquitted and got off. He was facing 15 years in prison, Phil, and he picked up this teenager after the trial ended.
And here she is during those pictures we were seeing were of her when she was
at the trial.
At the trial.
By your daughter-in-law.
Just a coincidence.
Just
right?
a coincidence. She was covering. She was one of countless journalists, dozens of journalists who met this young woman. They were supposed to be carding at the door of the trial. The Cook County Sheriff's officers. She was 15. She did not even have a fake ID, but she got into the trial and watched that child porn tape as it was shown numerous times.
How did she connect with R. Kelly?
He actually had one of his hangers-on friend her on MySpace and invite her to a party at Olympia Fields. She was at a party at Olympia Fields when the sexual relationship began. She brought a 17-year-old friend from Country Club Hills there who is still part of this cult today. So she is speaking what police are told is a cult, not my word. Police reports.
So what allegations does she make about their intimate life?
Physical and mental abuse. You have to follow these rules. She was hit, choked, slapped, and she's very much concerned about her friend who is still there, who's now 25, and she's concerned about the other young women who are there.
You allude to rules. What kinds of rules?
You are told when to eat, when to sleep, when to dress. You must ask permission to go to the bathroom, to leave. It's a sort of weird draconian ritual. Geronda Pace today was in touch with Kim Foxx and the state's attorney's office and would like to press criminal charges now that she's realized that taking a cash settlement in return for a non-disclosure agreement was the wrong thing to do. She is very eager to help bring forward any criminal case against Kelly that might get those women out of this situation. The FBI, the Georgia Field Bureau, will neither confirm nor deny an investigation, but I've talked to 4 people who've spent hours in interviews.
Okay, you just alluded to something that that is new to this conversation, and that is the whole notion of she settled with R. Kelly.
She took a cash settlement.
What were the terms of that settlement?
I can't tell you, Phil, exactly how much money she took.
Kelly's representatives have issued a statement, and that statement says, the allegations against Mr. Kelly are false and are being made by individuals known to be dishonest. Mr. Kelly again denies any wrongdoing and is taking appropriate legal action to protect himself from ongoing defamation. So he denies it, Jim. Do you
know what the dishonest part is? When your daughter-in-law or any of the journalists who covered the trial asked Geronda, because she was interviewed frequently, how old she was, she would say she was 18 or 19. She was a 15-year-old kid sneaking into an R-rated movie, or in this case, an X-rated court hearing, and lying about her age. I don't think that's dishonest. We reviewed with BuzzFeed hundreds of pages of draft legal documents involving 3 attorneys and a lot of other corroborating evidence, including a lie detector test she took with a private investigator in Hinsdale. That was a 7-page report. You know, the reporting is solid, Phil, as it was on July 17th.
I actually was made aware of her story in 2012 by her stepfather, said Derogatis. I've been trading emails with her over the years.
Back to Jorhanda's case. She broke a legal agreement after a settlement.
She did.
Does that affect her credibility?
Yes, I lied about my age. Many people has lied about their age. So that's absolutely nothing new. Whether you're lying about your age to get with someone older or just to appear cool or, seem like something you're not. A lot of people do it. So it wasn't, something that was not normal. Well, actually it is abnormal. You shouldn't be lying about your age. But, for a teenager to lie about her age, that's not abnormal.
Did she have a ID card that you ever saw that said her age or anything?
Yeah.
What did her ID say?
She was 18 when I met her.
So, but she said she was 16, but her ID said she was 18.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Because for the trial, you had to be 18 to get in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And did both of y'all go in?
Yeah, we were both sitting in the courtroom.
By 6:45, the sex chat crowd had gone home. Only Jorhanda Johnson and her best friend for the trial, Kiana Jones, remained in the courtroom, slumped against each other for support. All they ever got from Kelly was a smile and a curt nod. Those were real fans. Recess, Kelly walked out to the bathroom with his bodyguards. Girls in the hallway screeched and waved. Ladies, into the elevator, a deputy ordered. Jorhanda Johnson left the courtroom shaking her head. It ain't him on that tape, she said. Another girl stared daggers at Johnson's spectator badge. Ooh, I'll beat her up and take her pass, she vowed. Every day, two young women waited for R. Kelly. They waited in the morning outside the courthouse to see him make his entrance. They then went and got the equivalent of a backstage pass, so they could be spectators inside the courtroom, in the back rows allotted for the public. During the lunch break, they ran over to nearby Douglas Park to see him go to his tour bus for a private meal, away from prying eyes. At the end of the day, they tried to run out of the building before he did, so they could have a final goodbye. They shouted, "I love you," and he smiled and waved back. And they cussed out any reporter they thought had done Kelly wrong, on his behalf. One of them commuted 40 miles by train and then by bus for this. The other skipped school and left her 2-year-old son with her mother. These young women, 18-year-old Jorhanda Johnson and 23-year-old Kiana Jones, are the superfans. They are the most unwavering in their dedication to the star. Jorhanda and Kiana met Kelly at his bus. Kiana brought her 2-year-old son, Robert. Finally, they got a hug. The MTV article reported that Pace was 18, but public records, as well as Pace's birth certificate and driver's license, show she was actually 15 at the time. She admits she lied to the reporter because Cook County Sheriff's officers were not admitting anyone under 18 into the trial. Pace says she met Kelly when he was walking into the court building. The star seemed like a cool guy, and he would always speak to me when he saw me, she recalls. She even got the singer's autograph, which she provided to BuzzFeed News. He didn't have anything to sign, and neither did I, but my friend reached into her pocket and found an old bank slip, so I got his autograph on her bank slip. I laminated that. That meeting with Kelly would not be her last. In May 2009, a friend and employee of Kelly's friended Pace on MySpace. Pace tells BuzzFeed News, and invited her to a party Kelly was throwing at his mansion in suburban Olympia Fields, Illinois. Pace, who had just turned 16, says she lied to her parents, telling them she was going to a friend's house. I was a bit nervous, she says. Even though I had already met him at his trial, I was like literally at his house, so it did not feel real. She remembers Kelly calling her over to the bar and telling her he had noticed her at the trial. He then asked for her cell phone and entered his number in it. At the time I was still, pretty starstruck, so I was in disbelief, she says. Pace says she did not tell Kelly she was underage, and would later tell private investigators she claimed to be 19 years old at the time. The age of consent in Illinois is 17.
I wanted to show you the clips and let you listen to.
I met Jorhanda in April 2008 at one of R. Kelly's court dates. My cousin couldn't go with me, so I was there by myself, And since she was there by herself, I struck up a conversation with her. I asked her how long has she been a fan, where she stayed at. I thought she lived a lot closer than what she did. She told me she lived out at the thing, I believe it was Elgin at the time, or out by Elgin. So I asked her how did she get there, and she said that she called the Metro, or someday she might spend the night at her grandmother's house, which lived on the west side. When I first met her, she looked young. So when I first met her, I was like, okay, I don't think she's as old as she's saying she is, but the way she carried herself and the way she acted, I believe that she was her age, that she said, which was 18 at the time. Me and Geronda were like best friends. We were on the phone every day, talking, texting. We were hanging out when she came to the city. My son went to her house and spent the night a few times. We were very close. One time, she calls me up and asks me to go to a party with her. And I asked her, where's the party at? She was like, oh, it's in Olympia Fields. So I'm like, okay. Now, I already know R. Kelly lives in Olympia Fields. So I'm like, okay, sure, let's go. I'll go with you. And I'm like, well, how did you get invited to this party? And she was like, oh, I'm friends with this guy named Bubba on MySpace. He invited me. So I'm like, okay. So we go to the party. We get to his house, and he asks us for our ID. Well, I gave him my ID. I was over 21. So I give him my ID. And then when he asked her for her ID, she came up with a story that she had left it at her uncle's house, who lived down the street from him, and we'll go get it and be back. We never went back. Geronda didn't have an ID. Geronda didn't have an uncle that stayed down the street. I wasn't even suspicious at that time. And about 2011, 2012, she came to my house, and we were sitting on my couch in the living room. And she was like, I have something to tell you, but I don't want you to think different of me, or I don't want you to be mad at me. And I'm like, what could you have to tell me that would make me mad at you? And then that's when she told me that she wasn't 18 when I met her. At that time, she had told me a story about her buying a car that was more than $10,000, and it was reported to the IRS. She told me that her father died and she got his life insurance money. And then I want to say maybe a month or two later, she told me that she had a settlement from R. Kelly for suing him because she said that she was underage. And I was like, how were you underage if you were supposed to have been 18? I didn't get it. I didn't go into details with her. I didn't push her on it. But that's how I found out. When she finally came clean to me about her age, she told me that she was 16 in 2008, which now I'm finding out that she wasn't even 16 in 2008. She was younger than that. We started growing apart, I guess, after she met her now husband, and she moved, which is expected. You know, you grow up. My son got older. I had to focus more on him and going to school. She had to focus more on what she was doing. So talking every day on the phone made it went down to talking once or twice a week on the phone. And then when she did her first, and I guess it was the first interview with BuzzFeed, that's when I was like, okay, this friendship cannot go any further. I haven't followed the case. I haven't read anything she's done besides that one BuzzFeed interview. And with that, it's just like, okay, well, why? And it is not even more of the point of her lying. It's just, I feel like Geronda had a hidden agenda from the beginning. Because if you're a fan and you're going to court every day and you got to support him in 2008, then you wouldn't be doing this now. It's like, if you had this alleged relationship with him, then for all I know, you never told him how old you are. So if you had this relationship, then you were still lying to him about your age. Your mother was lying about your age. You had so many people covering for you. I believe that it was for financial gain. The criminal justice people and a lot of other people might feel that he was guilty in 2008 and he got away with it. And because it was I guess a black stain to them, it's more of a, we're going to find a way to get you now. That's why I don't agree with the Me Too in a lot of ways, because it's more of a, we couldn't get him then, but because of this Me Too movement, people are going to be more likely to say he's guilty now, black or white. For the grown women, I don't know their stories. I don't know if what they're saying is true or not. But when I met R. Kelly, the words that I was told was, you have to be willing to do what I say. So as an adult, if you made that decision to do what he said, why complain 10 years later? You were grown when you made that decision. He didn't force you to do anything. He said that the one thing that he wanted was a woman that would be willing to do what he said do. To me, that means anything. It doesn't, anything under the sun that I tell you to do, you have to be willing to do it, no questions asked. And with me, that didn't sit right. So I told him I'll call him back when I make a decision. I never called back. As far as I know, she called back. Or she told him yes then.
About him was different. He was very controlling. If I wanted to eat, I had to get his permission. I wanted to shower, I had to get his permission. If I wanted to go to the freaking bathroom, if the bathroom wasn't, in the room that I was in, I had to call and ask, like, is it okay if I go to the bathroom? Is it okay if I take a shower? Is it okay if I have something to eat? And it was always, yeah, you can have something to eat. Call the studio.
I was 16 years old. I went to his house. The truth about him, where I had a relationship with Jermaine, that's his real name.
Okay.
I had a relationship with him after I had left Rob. So he tried to, console me and just be there for me. And I thought, it was genuine, but it wasn't. He ended up being just like Rob. He was the same type of manipulator. So he was doing the things to me that Rob was doing to me prior to dealing with Bubba. And Rob was doing these things to Bubba as well.
Okay, so just for the record, Bubba is Jermaine. And so you met Bubba, whose real name is Jermaine, through R. Kelly. Now tell me about that experience, how you guys met. About the first experience when you met Rob and Jermaine, a.k.a. Bubba, together.
It's actually reversed. Bubba is the recruiter. He actually found me and took me to Rob.
Oh.
That's how that happened.
So they've been together for a long time. Because this was in
2008.
Okay.
2008 is
right.
when Bubba had friend requested me on MySpace. So it was a while ago. But I was friends with Bubba for a while on MySpace before he actually messaged me. It was the end of 2008. I want to say around December is when he sent me a friend request.
Okay.
And I ended up talking to Bubba early 2009. And that's how that happened. I talked to him on MySpace when my friend was actually looking for a tattoo artist. And Bubba, he has a tattoo parlor. He owns a tattoo shop, or at least he used to, back when I was talking to him. He owned it, and it's in Harvey. It was in Harvey.
Okay, and this is in...
So that's how me and him started talking.
Illinois, correct?
Yes, Illinois.
Okay. Now, you met Bubba first. Now, Bubba took you to the trial? To where R. Kelly was being
No.
How did that happen?
I took myself to the trial, but Bubba's friend requested me. And then after I was involved with Rob told me that he actually sent Bubba looking for me. So what Rob did, I don't know how he got a hold of a paper, or so maybe somebody gave him a newspaper article, because I was in a newspaper and I was also in Jet Magazine. So I'm guessing Rob told Bubba to look this girl up, and he found me on MySpace. And that's how that happened. Because Rob actually told me himself that he told Bubba to go find me.
Shauna, it was literally Rob had this party going on, and she was just really drunk at the bar, super drunk, and her friend was getting a taxi to go home. Well, to take her back home or wherever she went. So yeah, that's what that was. So it wasn't a whole lot of, encountering or conversing between me and Roshana.
Thinking, who is this person? This is a fascinating story, and not in a good way. And the reason I became one of Robert's lawyers is because there are 3 sides to every story. I do believe that the law needs to be followed, both on the prosecutor's side and on the defense. I'm not here to ask anybody, nor have I ever asked anybody to have sympathy for him. This isn't about having sympathy. This is about a man who is being accused of several things. Granted, none of them are good things that anyone would ever want to be sitting in his chair for. But it is astounding how many people have already judged him. So that's what's so fascinating too, is I believe that this case is absolutely setting precedents. In the United States, the wheels turn based on precedent. And unfortunately for Robert, he is the guinea pig of precedents when it comes to the hashtag #MeToo movement.